Paranormal Events at 1016 Stevens Street, Saginaw, Michigan, by Dennis M. Morrison, Sr. A number of years ago now, I and my stepson moved to Saginaw, Michigan in an old house at 1016 Stevens. The house was built around the 1890s and was perhaps in the worst condition of any home I have ever lived in. Now, normally I would have never moved into such a place as I didn't have the funds to repair it, and the repairs would indeed have been major. In the condition it was in, it should have been condemned, and in fact, now is. It was foisted on us, sight unseen, because we believed the lies of a so-called pastor friend, who we had done much to help over the years. But he was indeed very deceptive to David and I. We were told the house had been completely redone inside and was ready to move into. At the time we were living in another city and did not have the chance to visit the home. But we had done much in the past, as I said, to help this particular pastor, and I felt confident he would never lie to me. Wow, did I learn a big lesson. However, this is not the thrust of the story. The house had a small front porch, and you would enter into the living room where there was an enclosed stairway to go up, where there were two bedrooms. There was also one bedroom off the living room. Then at the far end of the living room was a hall with a bedroom, a very small furnace room, and then the kitchen, off from which was the most offensive bathroom I've ever seen in my life. The house was filled with other people's trash, and even dog feces ground into the carpeting upstairs. But yes, indeed, it was ready for us to move directly into. Thanks, dear friend. When we arrived there was a dumpster in the driveway, people going into the house, throwing things into the dumpster. We had to leave our stuff packed on the trailer for days before we could put anything, before other people's garbage was out of the way that we could even move anything into our house. I was warned of only one thing. The pastor friend told me not to sleep in the front bedroom, but to take the one off the hallway to the kitchen, and I didn't know why at the time. Nor at the time was I aware as to why there was a very strange and offensive odor in the house, particularly on very hot and humid days. I put it down to it being a very old home, and that was uncared for. Boy, was I wrong. I found out much later that the odor was because a young man, about my stepson's age, had died in the house. His body had remained there for weeks during the heat of the summer and was not discovered until the smell became so unbearable that neighbors complained. That odor was never taken care of, and it's never left the house. The young man, from the story told, had been seriously ill and had in fact overdosed on his medication. Now the fact that someone passed there did not bother me. You must expect this in an old home. But that was not revealed to me what the odor was in there. No, that did bother me, that a friend would do that to me, especially a pastor friend. It did bother me that it happened in the front bedroom that my friend told me not to use, but to let my son use, who was, by the way, also very seriously ill and on strong medications. An event eventually occurred in that room that I believe may have been directly tied with that other young man, but I will get to that in due time. There was paranormal activity in the home from the very first night. Nothing that truly scared me, but on a few occasions did unnerve me because of the totally unexpected nature of its occurrence. So I set up my bedroom in the center room and David in the front one, which, by the way, also leaked profusely. The house was so well repaired by my friend that there were gaping holes in the actual roof over that bedroom. For some reason, I was having a difficult time sleeping that first night, and I went upstairs and stretched out in one of those bedrooms where I quickly drifted off, but was not sleeping long when I was awakened by a very soft singing in the room. A woman's voice, African American. I could not tell the song, but it sounded like something from long ago. It did not stop immediately when I opened my eyes. I listened in the darkness for a short while and then turned on the light. There was nothing there except the dingy room, ceiling and walls stained from where water pours in during rain and spring snow melts. The woman's singing was something that reoccurred often, and other people besides myself had heard. Almost every time I slept upstairs, I heard it. It was not something that was unnerving. In fact, it seemed somewhat comforting, and I felt as though someone from another time was indeed watching over us. Now, frequently there is what is known in paranormal circles as shadow people. Oftentimes, out of the corner of the eye or in full view, shadow images moved across the rooms as though the house was theirs and theirs alone, as though we did not even exist. And even though we led our daily lives there fairly normally, they led their lives there also. These never caused any problems, but were a constant presence. There was a near-tragic incident in David's bedroom very late one night, or rather early in the morning. Keep in mind, this is where the young man had died. David's health condition is quite serious. In the last 9 years, he has had over 20 brain surgeries, and he is on some very heavy medications for pain. God has indeed watched over David in many very well and many very critical situations, and indeed he did on this particular night. It was around 3 a.m. and I was sleeping in the living room just outside of David's room because he had been feeling very poorly that entire previous day. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I sat bolt up and awake from a deep sound sleep. Something was wrong, and I could swear a young male voice awakened me. I dashed into David's room, and my stomach went numb. There he was laying on the floor, turning blue and not breathing. I cannot even convey the horror I felt at the moment. I called 911, and as the paramedics were on their way, the lady on the phone was instructing me on how to begin CPR. What are the odds that such a similar event would happen in that same room to two young men with extreme medical conditions? And who woke me up from that sound sleep? I know God allowed it. Of that there is no doubt, and I give him credit for that. And then there was that voice. Things turned out all right in this instance, and David recovered from the accidental overdose. Often David and I would hear our names called out. Many times in the morning as David laid in bed, he would see a form of a young man walking past his door going toward the kitchen and bathroom. At that point, we still didn't know that there was a young man that had passed there. Yes, our old house was occupied by residents other than ourselves, but they never meant us any harm, and at least on the one occasion truly seemed to help. There was a lot of history on this small piece of property, about a quarter of a block on which the house stood. While this likely has nothing to do with paranormal activity, but though it could, I will include it here just briefly. Then again, this just goes to show the progression of life on this and surrounding lots beginning in very ancient times. I did a lot of digging on this small piece of property and found many relics and artifacts. You see, beneath the dirt about 20 inches down, you begin to hit clay. It was in that layer I found a number of Native American Indian artifacts, which, because of where they were found, quite likely date back to the Archaic period, some 6,000 to 2,000 BC. Then there was truly a plethora of historic period relics dating from about the 1860s all the way up to the 1940s. The people of all those decades must have just buried their trash there in the yard, and much was found even under the house itself. But there were tools and horseshoe spikes from streetcars, wonderful old bottles, some of which were quite rare. There were china doll heads and small frozen figure dolls. There were cast iron toys from a farm set and types of china and dinner ware that numbered literally into the hundreds. All in all, even though the house was a falling down relic of another time that is condemned to be taken down this next spring, it was a remarkable place with many mysteries and wonders. But I wonder, those who occupied the house other than David and I, what happens to them when the house is gone? Where do they go? Who are they indeed?